Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever applies. I just saw the best psychological breakdown of my generation. And that's incredibly accurate. I'm going to go over what I saw here and tell you what I agree with and what I don't agree with, of course. But as far as Gen X goes, I'm old Gen X. I was born in the beginning, in the 60s, the late 60s. We started. We ended in the 80s, although I do disagree with that. I don't think, I'd like to say people up through sometime in the 70s, I guess the mid 70s, were Gen X. I don't think people up to the 80s are, but they're in our category. Welcome. But as I review this, I'm going to go over what I've agree with here. So here it is. The first thought they have is that boomers killed the economy. I think we've all got to blame for that. Millennials can't look up from their phone. Totally agree there. But in between, there's we, Gen X.
Coworker who gets everything done without making noise about it. Your parent who raised you but never needed the credit. The people who built the internet we're all addicted to but barely have a social media presence themselves. And here's what nobody wants to acknowledge. Their psychology might be the most fascinating and misunderstood of any generation alive. Let's start with what defined them more than anything. They were latchkey kids. And I don't mean a few of them had to let themselves in after school. This was standard for millions. Picture this. It's 1978. You're 8 years old. School bus drops you off. You walk to your house, pull out that key hanging from a shoelace around your neck, and let yourself into an empty home. No parents, no babysitter, no iPad to FaceTime mom, no Ring doorbell for check-ins. You're just alone. You pour some cereal, turn on the TV all 4 channels, and you wait. By 1984, roughly 7 million kids between ages 5 and 13 were regularly unsupervised after school.
Now, I hope you heard that, but it's true. Yes, we were latchkey kids, but we also learned a lot of self-responsibility then.
7 million. That's not some isolated thing. That's an entire generation learning at a very young age that nobody's coming to save you.
True.
Figure it out yourself.
Figure it out
And
yourself.
that empty house rewired their brains. It taught them that consequences are real and immediate.
Yes, we did learn consequences are real and immediate. I've got the scars in my hand from chainsaws, about cut one off. 3/4 of my body burnt. Scars that taught me consequences and learned the hard way.
You couldn't text mom for permission. You couldn't Google what to do. You made a choice and lived with what happened next. When your parents finally showed up, discipline wasn't a discussion. It wasn't some feelings-focused family meeting. You messed up, you got punished.
Yes.
End of story. No appeals. Psychologists call this a high-contingency environment. Actions and outcomes connect directly with no buffer. Your brain gets wired to think 2-3 steps ahead because you had to. That's why Gen X has this almost eerie ability to see problems coming before they hit. They're not
And I totally agree there.
pessimists. They're running constant simulations in their heads because that's how they survived. But here's where it gets darker. Gen X watched their parents preach one thing and do another. All this talk about commitment, loyalty, doing the right thing. Then divorce rates exploded throughout the 70s and 80s. They watched their dads give 30 years to a company only to get a pink slip during the next downsizing.
And that was true. Divorces were crazy, but I was fortunate enough that I didn't have that issue brought into my life.
Message landed hard. The system will betray you. People will let you down. Promises are worthless. Psychologists call it defensive pessimism, but Gen X just calls it Tuesday. They hope for
That's
the
right.
best, sure, but they plan for the worst, because in their experience, the worst shows up pretty regularly. This
And that's true. The worst does show up pretty regularly, so prepare for it.
isn't cynicism, it's pattern recognition. And it created this emotional armor that makes them seem detached, when really they're just protecting themselves from inevitable disappointment. This is exactly why you barely see them on social media. Not because they don't understand technology. Remember, they build most of it.
I disagree with them there. Here, fine example. But what I like are the Gen Xers that get out there and say it like it is. That's me.
Because they grew up when privacy was normal. When you did something embarrassing as a teenager, maybe 10 people knew. Maybe it came up at one party, but it didn't live forever on the internet. No permanent record of every stupid thing you said or wore. To Gen X, broadcasting our life online doesn't feel liberating. It feels dangerous, exposed, vulnerable.
Totally agree with that. This online presence has ruined a lot of these kids. I feel absolutely terrible for them. People make stupid mistakes, and I thank God the stupid mistakes I made weren't broadcast.
They learned early that the less people know about you, the safer you are. So they watch, they lurk, they observe, but they don't participate. Not because they can't, because they remember what privacy felt like, and they're not giving it up for likes. Then there's the irony. Gen X weaponized ironic detachment. Everything's a joke. Nothing's that serious. Keep it light. Keep moving. Don't let anyone see you care too much. Where did this come from? Try growing up during the Cold War. They did nuclear fallout drills in elementary school. Teachers calmly explained how to duck under your desk.
That was a joke. We did.
Plywood would protect you from thermonuclear war. Adults acted like total annihilation could happen any random Tuesday.
Don't worry.
But also don't worry. Everything's fine. When you're raised in that kind of split reality, you learn to hold contradictions. You learn to laugh so you don't scream. You keep distance from everything because attachment feels like setting yourself up for pain. But despite all this,
Absolutely.
The instability, the constant mixed messages, Gen X developed one of the most interesting work ethics of any generation. They don't talk about it.
We work.
They don't post LinkedIn manifestos about hustle culture. They just show up and do the work. This was forged early through jobs that seem prehistoric now. Paper routes at 5 in the morning, where a 12-year-old was responsible for delivering news to hundreds of houses.
I had 1,500 newspapers on an 80-mile route at 15. Yes, I had my driver's license early.
To calculate change in your head when the system went down. These weren't resume builders. They were raw, unfiltered introductions to adult responsibility. They watched their parents get destroyed by corporate America, so they never believed in company
Absolutely.
loyalty. But they're obsessed with being competent, with being valuable. They can't control whether they'll get laid off. They learn that early.
But we can be
control whether they're the last person
needed.
anyone would want to let go. So they make themselves indispensable, quietly, without fanfare. There's this paradox at the core of Gen X. They're simultaneously the most independent generation and the most quietly collaborative. They'll never ask you for help in solving their own problems since they were 8. But if you need
good
help,
friends, you will ask
they
for
show
help.
up.
Always
No
show up to
drama,
help someone else.
No post about what good people they are. They just do it. This comes from forming deep friendships out of necessity when parents
Lifelong
were absent.
friendships.
Your friends became
I've got
your
friends I
family
knew
because they had to,
when I was very
and that
small.
loyalty stuck. Now let's talk about authority, because their relationship
Authority.
with it is complicated in a specific way. Gen X respects competence, not
Yes.
titles. If you've earned your position through actual skill and knowledge, they'll follow you anywhere. But if you're just some executive who talks well but doesn't know what they're doing,
Don't like
zero
nepotism.
patience. They will quietly undermine you while smiling to your face. They question authority because they watched incompetent authority figures make catastrophic decisions their whole
Absolutely.
lives. Watergate, Iran-Contra, the AIDS crisis handled with criminal negligence, Vietnam, economic policies that gutted the middle class.
I used to be middle class.
People in charge don't necessarily know what they're doing, and blind obedience is for suckers.
Absolutely.
Economically, Gen X got hammered repeatedly.
We did.
The oldest
Jobs were
graduated
terrible.
into a recession. The middle ones got hit by the dot-com crash. The youngest came of age right as 2008 nuked the economy. They've been economically traumatized over and over, which is why so many have multiple income streams.
And that's true.
Not because they're naturally
We do.
entrepreneurial, but because they've learned viscerally that nothing lasts. Every job is temporary. Every company will eventually screw you.
Given the
Diversify
opportunity, they
or
will.
die. This created psychological baggage. Research shows Gen Xers report significantly lower rates of seeking social support during stress. Not because they don't have people to ask, but because asking feels like weakness,
It is a
like
weakness.
failure. They were raised to handle things alone.
But good friends, I'm
Their
not afraid to
programming
ask.
runs deep. It makes them incredibly capable in crisis, but it also means they struggle with vulnerability.
No, we don't struggle with vulnerability. We just don't like letting people
Their
know our
relationship with
weaknesses.
information is different too. Before Google, knowledge had weight. Gen X spent hours in libraries, flipping through card catalogs.
Anybody ever been in a
hunting for one
card
specific
catalog
book
searching for a
that
book?
might have the answer. Information required
That's all high school was. We didn't have
time.
punch it up on a
Physical
computer.
labor.
We did have
Because
a
of that,
computer,
well, they
but
learned
no.
stuck differently.
We used the card
When
catalog.
information costs you something to obtain, your brain holds it more permanently. They learn to fix things with their hands because that's what
We
you
fixed
did.
all our own stuff.
Bike
Still
chain
do.
slips, flip it upside down, get grease on your fingers.
Everything from
figure
putting
it
an
out.
engine into a car to
TV goes
putting your own
fuzzy,
roof on your house.
Smack it until it works. Nobody called a technician. You became the technician. This
That's why
built
we're
a
so
mechanical
widely
intuition,
skilled.
a belief that with enough patience and the right tool, you could master the physical world. And now they're raising kids in a completely different universe. Helicopter parents, constant supervision, social media documenting every moment. They gave their kids the attention they never had. But sometimes
did.
they worry they've made them soft,
And yes, I worry about that.
too visible. Because in the Gen X worldview, being visible means being vulnerable, and vulnerability gets you hurt. Here's the truth. Generation X might be the last generation that truly remembers what it means to be bored, to be alone with your thoughts, to solve a problem without instantly Googling the answer. They're not better than other generations, just different. Shaped by a specific
That's right.
moment in history when the old world was dying, but the new one hadn't arrived yet. They're the bridge generation, the middle child of modern history. And bridges don't get parades. They don't get recognition. They're just
We don't
there,
want
doing the
recognition.
work, holding things together, expecting nothing in return. And honestly, that's the most Gen X thing of all. Not caring whether anyone notices. Not needing the credit. Just getting it done and moving on. If this resonates...
So, that was a great interpretation. There were a few things that I disagreed with. But, well worth listening to. Big Brain Explains on YouTube. Check it out. We'll see you.